Hey everybody, and welcome. I'm Ashley Lucier. I'm the Executive Director of Amp Arts, and I'm so glad that you're here for this special edition of our Amplifying the Arts webinar series. If you're new to the series, Amplifying the Arts is a monthly kind of virtual gathering where we spotlight people, programs, and strategies that are helping move arts education forward in Alabama. And today's session is all about grant opportunities that are available through the Alabama State Council on the Arts. And we know how important this information is to schools and to teaching artists and nonprofits across the state. And they actually have an application deadline coming up pretty soon. So we wanted to make sure we got this in before that. So we're excited to be joined by Kaci Norman, the Alabama State Council on the Arts and Education Program Manager, who is going to guide us through their current grant cycle from eligibility, required materials, timelines, helpful hints to make sure that we all have strong applications that are being submitted. If you have questions throughout the session, feel free to drop them in the Q&A. I'm looking at my screen, it's on the right side. It may be for everyone else too, I don't actually know. But we'll leave time at the end to answer as many of those as we can. So Kaci, we can get started and I will hand it to you.
Perfect. Thank you so much. Good afternoon, everyone. I am excited to be here and share some of the information that you will need about the grant opportunities that we have. As Ashley mentioned, we do have a grant deadline coming up. It's September 2nd. And so I am going to be focusing a little bit more on that specific deadline, but the information that I'm going to give you is kind of our general information about the entire year of opportunities. So I am going to figure out how to share my screen. And let's see what, oh, this is so different. Okay. Oh, PowerPoint Live. That sounds fancy.
Yes.
All right. You can see my screen.
I can. Oh, there it goes, Kaci. Okay. Yeah, it's coming. Okay, there it took me a second. It's loading up.
Yeah. This is different than other platforms. Okay. All right. So just a general overview. The Alabama State Council on the Arts is primarily we are a funding agency for the state of Alabama. We fund through our grant programs, arts-based programming across a variety of program areas or content areas. For example, music, dance, theater, performing arts is a program area, community arts, literary arts, arts and education, visual arts, and folk life. And we have two major project deadlines, and those are in June and September. And just in last year's June deadline alone, we've funded $3.7 million. And specific to me and my arts and education, in addition to our project grants and our live arts learning that I'm going to talk to you about, I am also the statewide coordinator for a high school program called Poetry Out Loud, as well as a visual arts program, visual arts achievement program, and we will be introducing a new student exhibit that will be held at the Capitol during the legislative session in the upcoming year. And so today we're going to focus on kind of our grant slate of grants that we offer throughout the year. I'm going to tell you a little bit about each of those. And we're really going to focus on the curriculum-based and the administrative projects, because those are included in the upcoming deadline. But I do want to mention also that we also have fellowships for art educators, as well as a smaller grant program called Live Arts Learning, which I will also touch on. So first I'm just gonna mention fellowships. We offer a $5,000 grant for art educators. The deadline for those is March 1st of every year, and it would be for the following October. So even if you were applying in March of 26, you would actually be considered an art council fellow for fiscal year 27. So you would get your $5,000 award, and it is purely simply for you to refill your cup as an artist. We recognize at the Council on the Arts that one of our greatest assets are our artists and our educators. And in order to keep you in Alabama and keep you thriving and doing the work that you're doing, we want to support whatever it is that you need to keep doing that work. And so that's what the fellowship is for. I am sure I'm going to be doing more workshops and things about fellowships as we get closer to those deadlines. So I'm not going to spend too much time on them, but I would definitely encourage you to look into them because it is a really great program. So our kind of bread and butter of our grant program are our project grants. And those are kind of our overarching basic grant is known as a project grant. And then within that project application, you would choose what program area your project fits into. Mine are called curriculum based, or we also have one that is for summer camps and after school programs. And then we also have under arts and education, we have administrative project grants. And so we'll talk about those also. But for right now, we're going to talk about curriculum based. So those are projects that would be anywhere from $1,000 to $10,000 request. You could apply for 2 projects a year and no more than 4 applications per fiscal year. So we have those 2 deadlines, one in June, one September 2nd. So you could foreseeably request your max. We have lowered it to 35,000. So if you apply in this September and you request 10,000 for a project that you're going to do at a 3rd grade at an elementary school in Birmingham, and you also want to work with a middle school in Hoover, that could be a separate application. So you could submit 2 of those in the September deadline and request up to $20,000 total. And then the fiscal year starts over. So the next time we have project grants, it's a new fiscal year. So you would get to start over your requests. These kind of projects are curriculum based, has to have a lesson plan included. So you have to follow some kind of sequential learning. Most often it is following Alabama course of study, but that's not necessarily a requirement because there's a lot of schools and organizations that work outside of that kind of strict curriculum. But as long as you have sequential learning and you have lesson plans that you're using, typically they will fall under curriculum-based projects. And examples of that, like the image that you're seeing is the Huntsville Ballet has a project program called Discover Dance, where they work with elementary schools in Huntsville. And this is actually a program that teaches about weather. And so that kids learn about movement and storms and different types of clouds and all of that using dance. They have another math one. Another example of some of our projects, we have a lot of music programs, school-based programs that need instruments in order to meet their curriculum. I can't teach a student how to play the flute if they don't have a flute to play. So we do a lot of those. schools that don't have any arts education in the school and they want to bring in a teaching artist and you want to do it for an entire year or you want to do it for an entire semester, that would fall under projects as well. One of the kind of thing to remember with arts and education project grants is that only schools and nonprofit organizations are eligible to apply. So if you are a teaching artist and you know you're going to work with, Smith Elementary, then actually Smith Elementary would need to open that application. They would add you as a collaborator so you could work together on completing the application, and then it would be submitted through the school. It's actually through the school district. We'll get into that. But and so then if it's funded, the funds then go to the school and the school is then required to pay you as the teaching artist. And honestly, I think Ashley will agree with this. The hardest part of our arts and education project grants is getting a principal to sign off on it. Just getting them to sign the application is the hardest part because it does have to be signed by a principal. It does have to be signed by a CSFO, and getting them to sit down, create the account, or just sign into the account that's been created for them and sign that application can be tricky. But that is what we need. But you also have 2 months. All of our grants have a 2-month window of when the application opens to when the deadline is. So you have time to get these things done. Also, up until the week of the deadline, I am 100% available to go over your draft with you. I can see it in real time. So if you have any questions, you want me to look over something, you need suggestions or recommendations, just shoot me an email or give me a call and we can go through it together and I can give you some guidance. And I say up to the week of deadline because, as always, people are going to wait to the week of deadline to start the application and then they have all the questions. And so we're kind of bombarded that week. Another kind of smaller bowl under our umbrella of project grants are administrative projects. And again, those are schools can apply and nonprofits can apply. Under arts and education, the only thing that is eligible under administrative is professional development. It has to be arts focused, but you do not have to be an art teacher to get this. It could be Hoover City Schools wants to send all of their 3rd grade teachers to the Focus 5 arts integration training. That would be a perfect fit for this grant. So it is through the schools or a nonprofit. It can be for one teacher to do something that's arts-based PD, or a group of teachers. As you can see, the request amount is higher so that you can request up to 20,000, because a lot of times the PD that we do costs more because we have to travel to go to it. If you want to go to the National Art Educators Association conference, you're going to have to travel to that place. And so it does cover things like registration and your travel expenses, any supplies that you might need, cover substitutes. If you are in a position where you have to pay for your own substitute at your school, if you're a teaching artist that wants to get this training so that you can continue a residency or a partnership collaboration you have with a school, this is a good opportunity to get that training paid for. The only thing that our grants never cover, no matter what grant it is food. But everything else, if it is directly related to professional development, would be covered. Now, a big question that I get a lot, and what scares a lot of people away from our grants, is when they see and read that we have a dollar for dollar match. That is true for our project grants. However, our grants are matched such that you only actually have to have $1 of physical applicant cash, and the rest of your match can be made up of in-kind donations, services. Say you are working with a school or you are a theater teacher and you want to apply for your spring production. Um, if you spend any time working on your spring production outside of your teacher contracted hours with your district, that counts towards your match. If you ask or you have a parent that brings pizza in for your tech crew, that counts towards your match. If you get Lowe's to donate light bulbs, that counts towards your match. If you ask non-theater students to pass out programs on performance night, that counts towards your match. So the match can be made up of a lot of different things, and it gets there very quickly. The other great thing is if you are in or working with a Title I eligible school, there is no matching requirement for our project grants under arts and education. Now, having said that, the school has to be the applicant in order to get that matching requirement waived. So if you are a nonprofit organization that's going to be working with a school and they are Title I eligible, and you do not have, or you don't think you're going to have what it takes to make that match, then I would recommend that the school be the applicant and that they add you to that application so you can work on it together. So matching isn't nearly as scary as it seems. And if you have questions about what is a match and what isn't a match, absolutely give me a call and we'll talk it through. Yes, if you stay after school and work on your theater production for 4 hours, those 4 hours count towards your match, but the gas that you put in your car to get to school that day doesn't. So there are things that we can do. So don't be afraid of the match. Live Arts Learning is our smaller kind of, it's a different grant program, so it doesn't fit with the project grants. It's a smaller pool of money, so you can request anywhere from $500 to $5,000. Excuse me. It typically is for artist residencies, field trips, bringing a teaching artist on site to your school to work with, maybe multiple grade levels in one day, or a performance of a musician that you want to bring to your school, taking the students to see the symphony, taking them to see a museum exhibit. Anything like that would fall under Live Arts Learning. If you can get it, if you know it's going to cost you $5,000 or less, this is absolutely where you want to be. And I say that because it has a rolling deadline. So once the fiscal year starts, the funds are available and they go until they're exhausted. This has been the first year that we ever exhausted the funds, but we didn't do that until the end of the school year. And so we were able to fund just about everybody that we received applications from. Also, because it's a rolling deadline, there's no paneling process like with our projects, which I'll talk about in a little bit. It's a really long process. So you have to have a kind of a long forecast for project grant applications. Live Arts Learning is much quicker because it's all done internally. And so there's a quicker turnaround. There's also never a match, no matter if it's a school or a nonprofit organization that's applying. There's no matching requirement for the program. Applications are reviewed the last Monday of every month once the applications are open. So right now they're set to open in mid-August, and that will be for anything that starts October 1st through September 30th. So once we start receiving those applications, probably at the end of August, we'll see if any have been submitted. If there have, we'll review them on that Monday, and then you would find out on the Tuesday if you were funded. And it takes between 4 and 6 weeks from the time you get approved to when you would have, from the time you get approved, then it is based on whatever date you put in your application as the start date. So if you submit an application August 20th and it gets approved August 30th, but your start date isn't until November 15th, then November 15th is when it's going to go in queue for processing. And then that's about probably 2 to 4 weeks before you get those funds. So it is a much quicker turnaround. So you don't need to know so far ahead of what you want to do. But if you do know that you want to do something in March and you know it right now, then go ahead and apply, because it's going to be open until the funds are exhausted. So.
And Kaci, with Live Arts Learning, these are kind of like you get generally, as long as all of the expenses you put in your budget are eligible, you get the amount that you request, right? Versus
yeah, that's a good question. So typically, yes, it's a lot closer to what you request. It may be short, $50 or maybe $100, just depending on where our budget is. And that does differ from our project grants, which our project grants are never funded at 100%. That we use a formula that allows us to fund more applications rather than fewer applications at a higher percentage. And so typically our project grants are funded, if you're recommended for full funding, you would get anywhere from 76 to like 82% of your request. So if you request 10,000, you would get anywhere from 76 to 8,200 of that if awarded at full funding. All right. So I put these down just as generic, kind of to keep in the back of your head, important dates that we follow. Our grant deadlines do not change other than by a day or two if there's a holiday. So this year happens to be one of those. So typically September 1st is our deadline, but because there's a holiday this month, it's going to be September 2nd. And as I mentioned, there's no deadlines for Live Arts Learning, but those applications will open in mid-August, and they're reviewed monthly. And then our March for our fellowships, those will open January 1st, and they will have a March 1st deadline. And then the June, which I didn't want to put on here because I didn't want it to get too confusing, but June 1st is our typical deadline for our first round of project grants. The September 1st deadline is for projects that start January 1st and go until September 30th. And our June deadline is for everything that starts October 1st through the following September 30th. So the June deadline is kind of our year-long projects. And then September is anything that would happen in the spring or summer. And I always want to give some kind of visual for those of us who are very visual learners, kind of an idea of how our calendar works, because sometimes it's kind of hard to wrap your head around things like fiscal years and deadline days and distribution days and things like that. So this is kind of a whole calendar year. Our fiscal year runs October 1st through September 30th. So when we say like fiscal year 26, that's what we're in right now. Even though it's only 2025, we're already looking ahead to 26. And so October 1st of this year will start fiscal year 27. And so no payments can go out. So for anything that you apply for right now in the September deadline, it has to start after that October 1st date. And for September, it has to start after January. But we don't make any payments before October. And then our project grants take a much longer time to kind of go through the paneling process. And so if you apply, I think I have a slide with this later, but I'll reiterate it then. If you apply September 2nd of this year, you are not going to find out until December if you got that grant. That's just how long our process takes. If you applied for something in June, you're not finding out until September if you've gotten that. If you apply for a fellowship on March 1st, you're not going to find out until June, I believe. Yes. See, I'm all in it and I get confused. Yes. So it takes time. The other thing, actually, I'm going to wait and say that until you can see it on the screen. Kind of talking about our process. That is the website to apply. Everything we do is through a digital portal. So we have an online application system. If you need any kind of accessibility needs as far as screen readers, it should be accessible. If you need something, if it would just be better suited to you to have an audio transcription of our applications or a hard printed copy, just let me know and I can get that to you. For teachers, for teaching artists that are working with schools, when you are creating an account within our portal system, it's going to ask you what your organization is. For arts and education project grants and live arts learning, your organization is your school district. So for teachers, if you are a third grade teacher at Smith Elementary as part of Montgomery Public Schools is your organization. And then you're going to put in all of your information using your school email. And then it automatically links your account with the school district's account. So all of their information about their STARS number and all the stuff that nobody has any clue of what it is already in there. And so that's really nice, but it's also can be confusing because you're like, well, but I, Kaci Norman, am applying for this grant and does not necessarily have anything to do with my school district. It has to do with my school. But the way that the Alabama State Comptroller works is they will only pay a school district. They won't pay a single school. So it has to go through the central school district to get funded. An important thing to note is you are going to want to make sure that you add collaborators. Again, if you're a teaching artist working with a school, the school will need to open the application. They will need to add you as the collaborator and give you access. That's just a checkbox, I think, when they add you. And then when you log in, you will see it and you will have access. You can complete the application. It just has to come through that school district. You're also going to want to make sure that the principal and the CSFO is added. If it is a district-wide program, like you are wanting to work with all of the schools in Hoover City Schools, then you're going to want to have the superintendent instead of the principal sign, so that they, and what that does is it says to that CSFO, if they receive a check from the Alabama State Council on the Arts, they know I signed this application stating that I recognize that these funds, if awarded, have to go to this person, the applicant, and pay for this project. It cannot go into a general education fund. It cannot go to pay something else. And so that's why we have it as a requirement that they sign the application. You are also going to want to make sure that once you have created an account with your school email address or your personal email address, if you're a teaching artist and you are merged with an application at a school district, that the information for the school district that we have their UEI, which is the unique entity identifier, and their STARS vendor code for their school district, not for their individual school. The STARS code is kind of the vendor code that the state of Alabama uses to pay people. You have to have one to get funds. All schools have them. All of our schools have a UEI. I guarantee you, though, if you ask your bookkeeper, they're going to act like they don't know what their UEI is, but they have one. You do have to have both of those things in order to be paid.
And those are things, Kaci, I'll just say, like, as our organization, if especially if it's in service areas that we're already working in, so around Montgomery, Birmingham, Huntsville, Troy, Tuscaloosa, Mobile, especially if it's in those areas, a lot of times we have relationships with these schools and central offices. So if you are a teaching artist having trouble getting in touch with them to check off all these things that they need for the grant, that's something that we can help with on our side as well, if you're struggling with it.
Absolutely. Yeah. I mean, I don't want to pawn too much off on Ashley without her permission, but she's really familiar with our applications. And so if for some reason you can't get to me, Ashley is really good about knowing how to answer the questions too. I would first definitely say try to reach out to me since it is my job to answer those questions. But Ashley does know almost everything about them too. Eligibility and requirements. Again, I've kind of said all of this already, but just so you can see it, only schools or nonprofit organizations can apply. It says nonprofit arts organizations. That's not necessarily true, but it does have to be a completely arts-based project. And for our curriculum-based projects, they have to have lesson plans submitted in the application. Excuse me. The principal and the CSFO and any partnering organizations must be added as collaborators. Again, you're a teaching artist or you are a nonprofit arts organization that is going to be working with a particular school, and you want the school to be the applicant, then they will need to add you as a collaborator on the application so that you can have access to that. Any applicant that submits must be in good standing with us. And what that means is if you previously applied and you have an outstanding overdue final report, then you are not eligible until that final report is submitted and approved. That's really the only thing that would keep somebody from being not in good standing with us. Typically, we don't really deal with that too much. So, yep, I already said that about organizations. So yeah, if you're a nonprofit organization that's working with a school, you have to decide between the two of you who which one it makes the most sense to be the applicant. If you're trying to get that matching waived and you're working with a Title I eligible school, then you'll want the school to be the applicant. If you don't feel like you'll have trouble making that match, then the organization can absolutely be the applicant. They just need to add whoever their contact is, whoever they're working with at the school as a collaborator. But if an organization is the applicant, then you don't necessarily need the CSFO, because if funded, the funds are going to come to your organization rather than the school. What information you will need before you apply. If you have never applied with us personally, then you'll need to create an account in our portal system. And then, like I said, if you are working specifically, you are a teacher at a school, using your school email, it will automatically link you to your school's account. Every school district in the state has an account with us already. So, but if you are a teaching artist and you're using a personal email, you will have to be added to that organization. Information that you'll be asked to complete or confirm if it's already there is the physical address of the organization. That's the mailing address, to make sure that the funds get distributed correctly. The UEI number that I mentioned, or an EIN number if you're an organization or have a nonprofit, and the STARS number. The STARS number you don't need until you're actually funded. So if you are a nonprofit organization and you're going to apply and you haven't gotten your STARS number yet, that's fine. It doesn't take very long, but you do have to go through a registration process. But that's not necessarily required at the time of submitting an application. But the UEI is, and all of the kind of physical mailing address, that kind of information is required. In the application itself, you're going to provide as many details about your project as possible, even if they are not set in stone yet. So we very much understand that, again, you're going to have to be kind of forward thinking, right? So if you're going to apply in September, but your project can't start until January, a lot can change in those couple of months. And so if you know what you want the project to be, but you haven't yet really nailed down the specific dates it's going to be, or the times, which artists you might be working with, that's fine, but you'll want to put as much detail as possible. And if you don't know which artist you want to work with yet, you might want to mention some that you hope to work with, ones that you might have been in contact with, but you haven't really, solidified anything yet. That is fine. We understand that things might change, but as a panel, they're going to be looking for all that kind of nitty-gritty meat that they can glean onto to say, okay, yeah, this is a really great project, and it seems really feasible, and I think this will be a really impactful experience for students. And so without details, a lot of them are going to say, I just don't know enough about it to recommend funding. My biggest tip is to add collaborators as early in the process as possible, because like I said, if you have to add a principal or a CSFO, it's going to take you a little while to get them to sit in front of their computer and type their name. So if you can do that as soon as you open the application and then spend the next couple of weeks pestering them until they do it, then that will make your life easier. Make sure your budget makes sense. So there is the old adage of, when you apply for grants, you apply for as much as you possibly can, and you kind of conflate your expenses, right? And knowing that we don't fund it 100%, but If you say, I'm going to print programs for my spring theater production, and that's going to cost $6,000, then that's going to be a red flag to panelists. But if you want to pay a teaching artist and you have it broken down to what they're going to be making an hour and how many hours they're going to work, that makes sense. So you just have to make sure that what is in your budget table matches what is in your project ask. If you are doing a watercolor class, don't throw in a kiln in your budget. Or you're teaching a watercolor class, but you want the kids to also see a watercolor exhibit at the local art museum, and you'd like to pay for transportation to do that, absolutely 100%. If you have questions about your budget, please let me know. I will say that budgets and lack of details are the number one things that applicants run into not getting funded by panelists, are those two things. So talking about budgets and expenses, some examples of ineligible expense requests are anything that a person would earn credit for participating in. So a college workshop, a professional development course that is tied to some kind of certification, anything like that is ineligible. Any kind of fundraiser, that does not mean you cannot make revenue. If you are doing a theater production and you are selling tickets, you could absolutely sell tickets. What we don't want it to be is you rent a dunk tank and sell tickets for $20 a pop to dunk your principal. That is going to raise money for your school. That's not going to fly. So it can be tricky because you can make revenue, but that revenue has to go directly back into your program. So if you selling tickets for your spring production, and you make $2,000, then that $2,000 has to go back into your theater department. Political or religious endorsements, indirect costs. Like I said, if you're going to be doing a watercolor class, then don't ask for a kiln. Any food, beverage, or alcohol refreshments, any fine, penalties, litigation costs. We're not going to pay for your lawyer. We're not going to pay for your parking tickets, or your investment into anything other than being amazing teachers and impacting and investing in our students. So a little bit about our grant review process, because that's something that is always on people's minds. If you plan on applying, I would very much suggest you take a picture or write this down, this slide in particular, so you can know how long things take. So our step one panel process is a panel of, in my instance, I would get art educators, I would get nonprofit art organizations that have art programming in their slate of programs. I would get other state art agency, arts and education program managers from other states to be reviewers for the applications. And then those move on to the staff, where we look at making sure everything meets our policies and eligibility requirements. The third step, it moves on to a subcommittee of our council, which we call the Grants Review Committee. And then that goes on for council approval. So like I said, if you apply at September, the council will not vote on those recommendations until December. So you would find out the second week of December if you are funded. Project grants are distributed in 2 installments. The first half you will get within 30 days of the project start date. That project start date comes from what you put in the application. So if you are going to start January 1st, then that's what start date you would put. And then that is what we use as the date to get your first installment in queue to be paid. The second half will only be queued for processing when your final report is submitted and approved. So if you get funded for $8,000. At the beginning of your project, you're going to get a check for $4,000. Don't call me and say, you didn't pay me enough. I got the wrong thing, whatever. No. Your second half will come after your final report has been approved. And that is based on the end date that you put in your application. So the March deadline, as I mentioned, those announcements go in June. For the June deadline, they're announced in September, and September deadline is announced in December. So that is how we operate. We don't do anything quicker. The only thing that moves more quickly is Live Arts Learning. And like I said, you would know the Tuesday after the last Monday of the month if you were awarded. So I did pretty good for wanting to end to write it too. Does anybody have questions that I can answer? I notice my computer keeps moving upwards, like falling backwards, and pretty soon all you're going to see is my ceiling.
If you do have any questions, it's a lot of information. There is like a Q&A button that you can press and put one in there. But also, if you don't have any questions today and you think of them later, I'm going to send out Kaci's information after this so you can contact her or me for any questions. Let's see any in there, Kaci. I think you just did such a good job that I was like, man, and like, yeah, she's covering one, because when I'm thinking of like, oh, what about, and then you say it. So I was like, oh, no, she's got it. She's done this a few times.
I do. Yeah.
Well, yeah, we do want to get Kaci going because she does have another meeting to get right to after this. But I do want to thank you so much, Kaci, for being your incredibly helpful and really clear overview. And thank you all for being here for part of today's session. And we really appreciate you taking the time to be with us. And we hope you continue to join Kaci and I in this important work. And before we go, I have just a few reminders that can also help everyone. The session is being recorded, so if you missed any notes or anything, you want to go back and watch it. It is going to be uploaded to the Amp Up Arts YouTube channel. You'll also get a link to that sent to you afterwards, so you can be able to revisit any of these slides, pause it, take notes, what you need to do, or share it with other people who may have been unable to attend today. We have our next webinar that's coming up next Tuesday. We usually don't have them this close together, but we always have one the last Tuesday of every month. So that's going to be July 29th at 5 p.m. And we're going to be joined by some other Alabama State Council on the Arts statewide partners from the Alabama Dance Council, the Alabama Arts Alliance, and the Alabama Writers Forum. So we're going to have a really collaborative conversation with them about arts education programs and resources that are available across Alabama and how you can connect to those resources. So we'd love to have everyone there for that one as well. And you can register for that on our website at ampuparts.org under our resources tab, or you'll get an invitation to it in our follow-up email from this webinar. And then lastly, we also have a great opportunity with Sheffield City Schools. It's a new district that we are starting to work with. Well, it's new to us. In Northwest Alabama, right next to Foley, right over the river. And they're currently seeking teaching artists or organizations to partner with them for some creative learning programs in the upcoming school year. and they have funding for partners up to $15,000. And as great as the grants are, you don't have to apply for a grant for it. It's just a little bit of a different, you do have to do a proposal though. So you do have to have a lot of those steps in place, and multiple proposals will be accepted. And interestingly, their elementary school, Kaci, they have a kiln that they've never used in the elementary school. And they also have like 5 pianos that they've never used. So they have a lot of stuff over there, but that's open to teaching artists, arts nonprofits, and others are working in arts education. And the deadline for that proposal is July 31st. So almost about a week away. And you can find more information and an application link to that on our website or on our social media as well. So I just want to thank everyone for joining us today, and we will see everybody next time. Thank you, Kaci. Bye, everybody.